While the brain has evolved a fear response to keep us out of danger, it is also equipped with a strong sexual impulse to ensure the survival of the species.
Having an orgasm is one of the most powerful human experiences, so to begin to creep into the mind and find out exactly how the brain is producing this overwhelming ecstasy is exciting.
In the Netherlands, neuroscientist Dr. Gert Holstege is blazing a trail in sex research by revealing for the first time what happens in the brains of men and women during orgasm.
15 years ago it was not possible, but now with the neuroimaging techniques it's very well possible to see what's happening.
To find out, he needs volunteer couples. The man or woman agrees to be injected with a radioactive oxygen tracer and then stimulated to orgasm by their partner. While this happens, they lie with their head in a 3D imaging machine called a PET scanner.
The PET scanner is measuring only blood flow. It's measuring the amount of blood going to different parts of the brain.
The brain has many miles of blood vessels. When nerve cells are busy firing, they need lots of energy-laden and oxygen-rich blood. When they're not, they need very little.
So you see what brain regions take part in this whole thing of ejaculation or orgasm.
Aside from the obvious challenge facing the volunteers to reach orgasm in a laboratory setting, there is a time constraint too. The oxygen tracer has a half-life of just 2 minutes.
I think it would be tough to have an orgasm under these circumstances, under any of these circumstances. Everywhere in the world, we have the vast majority of our sex in private, unlike almost all other animals.
Fortunately, 11 men and 13 women did manage to get the timing just right. And what this groundbreaking experiment revealed was a startling difference between male and female brain activity during sex.
The outcome was very surprising. When you look at the male brain during ejaculation or orgasm, then you see several parts activated.
During male orgasm, blood gushes to the top of the brainstem. As well as being one of the oldest parts of the human brain, it's the area that controls the release of dopamine across the brain. Dopamine is a type of hormone called a neurotransmitter. Scientists know dopamine generates very strong feelings we associate with pleasure.
What became clear is that the dopamine is released a little bit in advance of these things, like food and sex and drugs. So it's not, strictly speaking, a chemical of pleasure. It's a chemical of anticipation.
So you're getting a flood of dopamine. Dopamine is the same chemical that becomes active when you feel the rush of cocaine and the other stimulant drugs. So it's an overwhelming experience of ecstasy and energy.
The experiment showed that in men, blood was flowing away from areas of the brain that had to do with anxiety, but other areas remained alert.
In men, you will find deactivation of the amygdala and the region that have to do with anxiety or fear.
It's not surprising that other parts of the brain become deactivated so that you don't feel anxious, you don't feel scared, you're not thinking about anything except the orgasm.
Dr. Holstege found that women enjoy a similar dopamine experience to men. But what surprises him most is how much a woman's brain shuts down during orgasm.
The deactivation was the most important finding. In women, there was an enormous deactivation of all the centers of the brain that had to do with anxiety or fear or alertness. Apparently, women let it go.
Women can even go unconscious during orgasm, whereas men don't. Experts believe the difference between men and women may date back to prehistoric times when we were hunter-gatherers.
This may have an evolutionary purpose. You know, for millions of years we had our sex on the grasslands of Africa where there were dangerous animals roaming around. Somebody had to be alert enough to jump up and run or defend the group. And it's logical that that would be men. So the female brain tends to shut down more than the male brain does.